Arthur Symons once said, "A man who goes through a day without some fine emotion has wasted his day, whatever he has gained by it." And it is so easy to go through day after day, busily and agreeably, without ever really living for a single instant. Art begins when a man wishes to immortalize the most vivid moment he has ever lived. And the making of one's life into art is, after all, the first duty and privilege of every man. It is to escape from material reality into whatever form of ecstasy is our own form of spiritual existence. It is through this quote that I endeavored to become what I like to call a sensualist. Through the senses we come to know the world. It is the seat of our perception, and yet we also transcend them, through them somehow. With these 5 avenues to our interpretation of the world, we must be deliberate, present, and gentle. In this way we can access a latent world, a place of, as Huysmans would call it, pleasures not yet discovered. A life worth living, in my opinion, is one with preference for aesthetics, one of refinement and contemplation, all of which would not reach any apex without the careful cultivation of each individual sense. Today, I practice the method for the cultivation of my senses. One of the first things to descend onto my palate in the morning is coffee. I'm fortunate enough to be close enough to a place that makes it well. When I was first introduced to third wave coffee, I realized that there was just no going back. When you have a cappuccino where the espresso is extracted perfectly without bitterness or being sour, mingled with silky, fatty milk, you just never need to put sugar in it again. I'm a snob. I'm a snob about coffee. I am, and I don't care. The shop I go to uses cream top milk, and the fat in the milk makes the espresso taste better. Like heaven, actually. This cappuccino will taste like nougat, like egg-washed orange brioche, citrus and fat and chocolate. Sounds crazy maybe, but I'm not joking. Over the past 2 or 3 years, I've learned how to do latte art, and being able to pour milk this way is a personal joy. I was very fortunate to train under someone who competed in latte art competitions. While I'm nowhere near his level of mastery, I practice constantly to even get close. Sensualism is about synthesis. It's about combining the senses to form a greater whole. In this case, it means eating or drinking something that also looks beautiful. This kind of thing counts. We're elevating an ordinary thing. This cappuccino gives me what I need, sure, caffeine, and it tastes good. But sensualism is all about exceeding the bare minimum. We want fine sensations, fine emotions, like Arthur Symons said. And we can achieve this through compounding the senses, but also by not overpowering them. I drink this beverage without sugar because the experience of its flavor is nuanced. And over time, your receptivity to these nuances expands. What I thought was a great cappuccino a few years ago is not the same one that I think is good today. The bar raises and your taste refines. And when you get that thing, whatever it is, at its finest, you can just coast. The world stops, nothing matters. And all of your existence is just right there in that moment with this cup of coffee. Within the past couple of years, I've really started to think about the art of perfumes. In aesthetic philosophy, smell and taste are actually considered to be the lower senses because of their accessibility, I guess. But I think that Proust made it pretty clear in his In Search of Lost Time that scents can be pretty remarkable. I haven't read In Search of Lost Time, but everybody knows the premise, right? The Madeline and the tea and smell and memory and all that. A smell can trigger a memory, of course, and can lead to like a flood of emotion, or it can lead us to eat a fork full of food that we really love. But scents also entice the mind to envision worlds that have not been discovered yet. They inspire us to dream, to create, to investigate, which is why for the sense of smell, I want to talk about this video's sponsor, Scentbird. I do not go a day without wearing perfume, and this day of catering to the senses is no exception. Perfume is like your echo. It's the idea of you that precedes you and also lingers long after you're gone. It's like your ghost. And through personally chosen scents, you can see how we can bring like entire worlds that we find interesting through the sense of smell to graze our own skin. And we make those worlds ours somehow. So I want to talk about two of those worlds, those environments today. So the first fragrance, the first world I'm going to be talking about today is the Harmonist's Velvet Fire. This perfume I have been wearing interchangeably with my signature fragrance, which I will not name. The top notes for this are going to be cypress, tobacco, white musk, clary sage, and lavender. I am a sucker for musk and glamour together. And that's what this fragrance is. It's like a panther in an opium den. It's this animalic thing that's present among the smokes of delirium and purification. I also just need to say here, by the way, the packaging for this deserves an award. I love looking at this and I love carrying it in my bag. I love seeing it in my bag. It's like an elegant test tube. And also this is a lot of perfume, okay? This is 120 sprays. This is supposed to be a 30-day supply of perfume. I use this all the time and I am not even halfway finished with this. Also, something that people do not know about fragrance is that whenever you do buy a big bottle, and not something like this, if you're not keeping your perfume in a completely dark and very cold place like your refrigerator, then your perfume is being exposed to light and it is literally like molecularly deteriorating over time. Whenever you have a big bottle, the perfume that you have that's been sitting there in the sunlight is not the same perfume as when you got it. What I really like about Scentbird is the amount that you get. It's just enough so that it stays fresh. The second fragrance I'm going to talk about today is Remarkable People by Etat Libre d'Orange. This was an interesting one. I've heard good things about this house, so I wanted to check it out for myself. The top notes for this are going to be labdanum, jasmine, champagne, grapefruit, and sandalwood. This is definitely an androgynous fragrance. I wasn't expecting that. It starts off a little bit like aftershave, but then it transitions into a smell that calls to mind ivory, silk, crepe, and parquet floors. I think it would smell really good with sweat. Like I would wear this to the gym. The grapefruit really, after some time, punctures through that labdanum, and then it kind of exits with a champagne fizzle. Definitely good for people who like clean fragrances. I love smelling new things. Scentbird makes those smells more accessible, and it makes learning about the smells more accessible. So what is Scentbird? It is a monthly fragrance subscription. Upon first starting, your first month is only $8, and then it goes up to just under $17 per month for that. And admittedly, it's a very diverse selection. I think even my tastes are well represented there. If you're interested in trying Scentbird, if you'd like to try it, you can either scan the QR code provided or use the link below. And make sure to use my coupon code for 55% off. You will also get free delivery to your door and a free case. I think it's a great way to learn about new fragrances, to learn about what fragrances are for you, what, how they reflect your personality, what world you belong to. Three years ago, at random, I picked out a singular anthology of Chilean poets, the only one in the library. The first poem I read in it was credited to Paz Molina. The poem is called "The Scream is a Kind of Coffin." It is one of my favorite poems, and upon revisiting this poem recently, I decided to just purchase a copy of the anthology for myself to explore the other poets contained in it. Little did I know I would be subsumed into poetry which exploded the boundaries of the genre. So much so that I ran into poets like Raul Zorita, who wrote poems in the sky, and Juan Luis Martinez, whose poems are composed not only with words, but with images, which are vital to them and could not be removed or the poem ceases to make a point. Examples of this are his poems The Identity and Theorem of the Garden, which included correlating photos of a father and his infant son. Before reading this anthology, I would not have thought to use a poem as a representation of sight. But I find that the more I explore my senses, the more ambiguous they become. They stop being so literal. I find here that my understanding of sight and poetry have now changed. As we explore the senses, they lose their cogency, but in the best way. What we once thought was cast in iron is actually liquid and vacillates between innumerable casts. Poetry can be an image. It isn't just words on a page, clustered in stanzas or verses with spaces between them. Seeing something doesn't always mean you're really looking at it. And perhaps a thing doesn't exist at all until you see it, until you know how to see it. Martinez brings photos into a poem, and the words are like instructions for how you're supposed to perceive the photos. And it's almost as if we should have always known that the relationship between words and images is one which supersedes their categorization. Martinez reminded me that nothing exists, even the visible world, until we think about it, until we relate one thing to another. And then we're off to metaphors, where two things, which seemingly have absolutely nothing to do with one another, are linked. When I listen to music that I really love, I experience the phenomenon called frisson, which is the term for that shiver that you get down your spine, or goosebumps when the music hits just the right spot in your brain, that aesthetic chill. I and about 50% of you have been acquainted with this sensation. I think it is so special that different senses can mingle like this. Somehow, hearing something beautiful elicits a physiological response. And I experience this quite a bit with orchestras. I don't know about you guys. It feels like their stringed instruments are playing directly on my nerves, but in the best way. Or my own hair is taut between their bows. When I listen to Toshinori Kondo play his trumpet in the most forlorn, haunting way, I experience frisson. When I listen to Tchaikovsky's finale to Swan Lake, I experience frisson. And then I start to weep. Sometimes I'm in my car or in my room or in public, and I don't care. I just cry. I let it pour out and burst. And I can't help but feel so unbelievably grateful. Grateful that music alone can expand within me in this way, elate me, move me to the point of atemporality and tears. It can be a feeling so overwhelming, like I no longer inhabit this earth. Absolutely nothing else matters. It's just this peek into something far greater, just me and this perfect thing. Somehow, through the senses, which are evidence of our humanity, deliver us from that humanity. The sensualist's ultimate goal is transcendence, but each and every time you begin with what makes you human. Touch is the most difficult sense for me to experience. It takes a lot of patience to connect to my body in a meaningful way. So this might be the most important part of the day for me. I associate touch with the ability to be intimate with others as well as myself. When I think about the sense of touch, I realize that I have a lot to work on when it comes to loving my own self and loving other people. How does a person come to recognize that they're here on this earth? How can they show themselves and others kindness and love? Taking care of the body is a way of acknowledging that this body is not to be left behind in the pursuit of our transcendence. There's a Platonic concept called metexu. Every separation is a link. Simone Weil expanded on this in her essay, Gravity and Grace. It means that the physical world, including our own body, is what keeps us from coming into contact with the divine, but it is also a way of communicating with it, like two separated prisoners who knock on the wall between them to communicate, or a blind man's walking stick. I need this body, and you need yours. Though we have limitations, we are still spoken through. We are an instrument, and the divine is not the only musician who plays it. The ones we love play us, and we play them. Through touch, like giving them a big hug. You can bridge the gap between two beings who could never know one another, though everyone and everything at its core is entirely unknowable. I will never know even my closest friend in entirety, and they will never know me. But by offering each other this mediation of touch, a hug, there is communion, an exchange of relatedness, a center that you can always return to through affection. It took me a very, very long time, perhaps too long, to truly internalize what affection is. I was for a long time used to being reserved, and this inability to show love or receive it blocks contact with higher realms of living. Those who do not touch, who do not feel, who do not love, greatly restrict themselves from a life of beauty, from living. It is known that if children are not touched as newborns, if they are not shown love by a mother or surrogate, they die. It is as if this lack of touch convinces the child that the world does not exist and therefore they should not either. There is no link, only separation, abandonment into eternal solitude. Even as grown adults, we live as if divided. We choose to avoid the link because we are fearful of love and fearful of being hurt. And I plead everyone to realize that by doing this, they are keeping themselves from higher dimensions of feeling. And it starts with being kind and showing affection to the people that you care about. You cannot stay reserved in your solitude or stay reserved in your own body for too long before you realize that somebody just wants themselves to be touched. They just want your hand holding theirs. They want a kiss on the cheek, or they just want you to touch their hair. We all want affection, and we want to know that this world is a world for us to be in. And it starts with touch. It starts with the senses.